Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Smoko podcast. My name is Alexis Armstrong, your host. Nice to meet you. The Smoko podcast is a place to celebrate and highlight women, trans women, and gender diverse people in STEM and trade occupations. So please tune in, take a break, and join us. We are on Smoko. Today, we are extremely lucky to be joined by Anna Lary, who is a Red Seal and BC Master Electrician. She's a field service representative, Class B. She is an instructor at BCIT, where she teaches in the electrical apprenticeship program. She's been there for over 10 years. She has completed her diploma and a master's of education, specializing in curriculum and instruction. She is also the regional representative for the BCCWITT, and she's a huge supporter of women at BCIT, with a wonderful event coming up at the end of March for women in trades and increasing equity for women in trades. So Anna, it's insane. Your resume itself, it's crazy how much you do and crazy how much you've done already. Your background, both in terms of education and technical ability, but also your teaching and all of your give back to the community. It's incredible. So it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, Alexis. I'm really honored to be here. Just to listen to a bunch of your podcasts, and I really appreciate all the kind of awesome rule breaking rebels who've accomplished so much, and just being included in them, because I do like to think of myself as being a bit of a rebel. So
100% you're a bit of a rebel. Like on paper, you can see that from like a mile away to be like, oh my goodness, this is insane. Like you could just tell that you've broken kind of barriers every step of the way. And it's been something that has been really cool every step of the way. And I
Yeah,
can't wait.
I started my apprenticeship in 1997,
Ooh.
and it's really exciting for me now to see that I feel like we're on the cusp of real and significant change,
Mm-hmm.
which I couldn't say that I felt that like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's
so
incredible.
I've been through a lot of obstacles as a woman in trades. Like I love electrical. I love the work that I do. I love the work that I teach. But there's been a lot of obstacles and barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of unfairness of it all has sparked in me a desire to make things better for other people. And I feel that there's so many other people doing this work now. We're kind of on this kind of groundswell. Things
Mm-hmm.
are going to change and they should be changing.
Yeah, I
So,
couldn't agree more. I
yeah.
like I think you can kind of feel it in the air a little bit. And I don't know what it was like when you first started. I can imagine that it was very, very different, but it's cool to hear that even within the last 5 years that there is for you a noticeable change. I would agree with that. I think that there's just a lot of grassroots communities popping up across North America. And that increase in grassroots communities, the increase in funding by government, the increase in research. Like I know some wonderful people at SAIT that are doing fantastic inclusivity research.
Yes.
Like all
They
of
celebrity
those. Yes. Yeah. Yes, I do. She's incredible.
Yes. So when I started in the trades in 1997, I
Mhm.
kind of imagined that we were in a post-feminist society. I had no idea that I'd be walking into such a gendered environment.
Mm.
So, I mean, I was pretty young. I was a kid, but I just had no idea that kind of the systemic barriers would be so extreme that there'd be like
Mhm.
nowhere for me to go to the bathroom,
Mm.
that people would constantly be asking me why I'd chosen to be an electrician. They'd be constantly asking, like doubting my ability. And I met tons of wonderful men. And then I met some awful ones, like really awful ones. But even the wonderful ones, like, didn't really understand, didn't really get it. So for me now, having a community of women and gender diverse tradespeople that I can connect with is so relaxing. You walk into a room, you don't have to explain yourself, you
Mhm.
don't have to explain your experiences, and you can just kind of put your armor down, and then you get all the kind of fun networking opportunities. You get to learn about what people are doing, the work that they're doing, because it's amazing. Like rope access electricians, like
Mhm.
Just such cool work people are doing out there. And maybe nerd out about something technical. Your favorite pot light. I don't know. I'm just like really excited to be more connected with a kind of community of like-minded individuals. A lot of tradeswomen too tend to be rebels.
Mhm,
We're not always all that good at playing well with each other, but I think that's improved too. There's
mm,
kind of like I think there's been a bit of a scarcity mindset where I've made it and I'm not
mhm,
sure I want another woman or gender diverse person to make it because that might dim my brilliance.
mm.
But I think that's going away.
I
I think
hope
people
so.
can are
Yeah,
understanding they can lift other people up and that there's
yeah,
room.
yeah. I
You're
think
not you don't have to be the token woman.
yeah. I was about to say too, like, I don't want to speak for tradeswomen, but in sciences, we have a very similar culture, especially in industrial environments, at like places like mining and in geology. And I always thought that that idea of maybe a scarcity mindset of being like, okay, well, if they hire somebody else, I'm at risk. I always felt like
Yes.
that was from an unstable culture, an unstable structure that it didn't really work to even have one woman there, so I'm barely kind of existing within this space or comfortable in this space.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's where sometimes that, in my opinion, where that type of mindset comes from. But I think as structurally it becomes more equitable and like we have things like our own bathrooms and we have people having conversations about like mat leave and we have people have conversations about sexual harassment and assault of the workplace. Like when we
Nice.
structurally start to change, I think then our behavior and maybe our attitude towards other women in the field also starts to change as well.
Organizations like BCCWITT, British
Mhm.
Columbia Center for Women in Trades and Technology. They do a really good work of connecting people, of lifting them up, of connecting them to resources. It's been such a boon for me. I was doing an info session, and my colleague who was going to help me with the info session, she had to drop out.
Mm.
And I texted somebody within BCC at BCCWIT, and I had 7 female electricians text me and say, "How can I help out?" And I actually just, like, started crying because it's just,
Oh.
like, just so wonderful
Mhm.
to have that kind of community around you, that kind of support.
Oh, totally.
It's it's exhausting working in such a gendered environment, like, don't get me wrong, I like men, I like kind of the casual, kind of joking environment you can have. I like
Mhm.
electrical work, I like getting things done. But even well-intentioned men don't really understand the kind of barriers that women face,
Mhm. It's just not the same. They're just
and
it's
not
not
all
their
of them.
lived
Yeah.
It's not
Eh,
their lived experience. It's hard for them to, like, understand it to an extent compared to other women who are also there in the environment with you, and,
yes.
like,
Yes.
I could see that phone call being an emotional one. One, it's wonderful that they had your back, but
Yes.
I'm sure when you first started in '97, you were probably one of the only ones, and there wasn't 7 other electricians, female
No.
electricians that you
No.
knew or went through a cohort with in your apprenticeship or your
I
education.
saw people every now and then for sure, but yeah, it was an interesting space to kind of become an adult in. Like I started in my early 20s in the trades, and I was still learning how to be a good worker, to be a good employee, and I was working in a trades environment with like some pretty wild situations. The first time I ever walked on a job site, it was at a greenhouse in Ladner, and I walked into this huge building, like think 7 a.m. in the morning. So it's kind of this enormous greenhouse under construction. And there's all these agricultural workers there on ladders. They were installing like the big fans for ventilating the greenhouse. This is my first time ever on a job site. They all started yelling and screaming. I was like,
Oh my goodness.
I was like,
What?
is it going to be like this every day? And it absolutely wasn't. But I
Yeah.
mean, that was my sort of initiation into the trades.
Oh,
My first day on a job site.
Oh my goodness, what an intro. Like that, I couldn't imagine, Anna, how like
Yeah,
I would have been terrified. I also would have looked behind me. I would have been like, they can't be yelling at me. Like, if that's the type of reaction, I'd be like, where's the danger? What's
yeah.
going on? I'd be like, no, they're yelling at my
Me,
arrival into
yeah,
this
woman on a
space.
job site, and I'm just like, this is a lot, because I'm
Yeah.
like a young person, and everything I did, all the things I did to learn, I was observed, like
Mm.
how I held a drill, how I turned a screwdriver. There was some dude watching me. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is tough. But I am like persistent, I'm dogged, and I don't quit.
Mm.
Like being publicly humiliated doesn't faze me much either. I've done a lot of stupid things,
Yeah.
and I'm
Well,
sure I'll do more.
it's also easy if you're under a microscope, right? Like it does
Yes.
teach you like resilience and it teaches you to be, it's definitely trial by fire. I think like most women within these spaces are such, like I love that you brought up the term rebel a couple times because I couldn't agree more with that like kind of rebel like spirit that I think is just common throughout all women in trades. But I also think you kind of get good at, you're just like a badass. You're so good at what you do because you've just been put under so much pressure and scrutiny from the very, very beginning that your task is going to be 100%. Your skill level is going to be through the roof if you've stayed because you have to. Like you're just held to
Yeah.
a different standard and held to a different level.
One thing I've heard a few people say is that we need enough women and gender diverse people in industry so that each one of them doesn't have to be the best. They
Oh,
can
we can
be
be
mediocre.
mediocre.
They can be mediocre too.
Yeah. I love
Like
that idea. Hmm.
I am a good electrician. I pride myself in it. Is every conduit run that I've ever installed beautiful? Absolutely not.
Mm.
But a lot of it is. So it's kind of situational. If it's going up in a T-bar ceiling or it's going to be covered in concrete, I have like one level of work. And then
One level of patience.
if it's surface mount, it's going to be like exquisite. So
I think as it should be. And I want to talk a little bit about this transition because you had a wonderful career working on the tools and in
yes,
industry and you went through and became a Red Seal electrician. And you're also have this other side to you because you have this fantastic experience and all this experience on the tools. And then you have all of this experience as a BCIT instructor. And I was wondering if you could talk about maybe that transition period. Feel free if we've missed something to talk about your journey into
yeah.
electrical, if we've gone past that. But if we could really like look at that transition point in your life and that decision to be like, okay, I'm going to become an instructor.
I had never thought of being an instructor, but I was working a job where I didn't know what time I would be home, and I had
Mm,
like a 9-year-old at the time. So I went and applied for a whole bunch of jobs that I was really interested in, say like working for the city of Vancouver or the district of North Vancouver. Mostly I sort of envisioned myself having a nice service, like a nice bucket truck and driving around. um, but I saw an ad
mm,
to teach at BCIT, and there was a couple of key points that were highly interesting to me. And one was that it had 10 weeks holiday a year.
mm.
I'm like, oh.
Excuse you. Yeah, you're like, we don't get that right now. That's unreal.
And then the hours were structured,
Mm.
right? Like the classroom hours were from 7:30 a.m. to 2:15 p.m. And then so I was like, I know I'll have to work in the evenings doing
Mhm.
classroom prep and all that kind of stuff. Because trades instructors, we teach a lot. We have 4.5 days face-to-face instruction
Mhm.
a week, which is a lot, and half a day classroom prep
Wow.
a
Yeah, that
week.
is a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I knew that this is something that would work for me as a mother.
Mm.
So that is literally the reason why I decided to become a teacher. I had no and I always like bringing apprentices along, like telling them exactly how to do that run a pipe, and giving them like bringing people along, teaching them.
Mhm.
I did like that, but I never thought of myself as being in the seat of like an instructor. So I saw the ad. I called my the old chief instructor, and he was like, "Come in and talk to me about it." And we had a great conversation, and I wound up teaching there shortly afterwards. And it was actually a miserable transition for me. It was awful because I was
Oh, no.
breaking up with my partner.
Oh, no. So
He was
it's a rough time.
he
Okay.
was suing me for half of my house, which he had no right to,
Mm-mm.
because I'd had the house for ages before he came along. And yeah, so and my daughter special needs. So it was just like this crazy, insane time. And I had to, it was actually very difficult because I started teaching and I just was going through all this awful stuff personally.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. But I had some wonderful classes. I had some terrible experiences of teaching too, to be honest, but I just had no choice at that point.
Yeah.
I had to work. I needed a job that worked for me and my family.
Hmm.
And so I probably stuck it out when I might not have stuck it out at another time. And it's
Mm.
turned into a wonderful job for me with all kinds of professional development opportunities. And after a bumpy start, I feel like I'm a good teacher now.
Mm.
I love the material. I've always loved electrical. Since we have this like most amazing kind of combination of technical knowledge and like physics. Do I love Canadian electrical code? No, but I've made my
No.
peace with it.
Yeah. No, I don't think any electrician is like, you know what? I'm going to become an electrician because I think the code book that we've
Yeah,
created is the best of the best. Like, I don't know if that exists, Anna.
there, it does.
It does. Oh, that's crazy. Oh my goodness. Well, I've never met somebody. I've never met somebody who loves a code book. So I
Okay, okay. Just
apologies to
come
that
to my
person.
workplace.
Yeah, apologize to that person who's out there.
And I mean, like electricity, electromagnetism, it's
Mm,
just wildly interesting.
hmm.
I mean, we teach it kind of in a somewhat simplified format in electrical, but we teach some very technical things. And the more I teach it out of my own interest, I learn more about it too. And I you can just totally go down into like a kind of rabbit hole. And it's I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I love that transition and like now where you're at with teaching, that it's this beautiful career. I'm so sorry that everything that would, I couldn't imagine how difficult that would be. Like, oh, that sounds just like way too much, truthfully, for
Okay,
one person to handle.
I did something else
Yeah.
too. 5 months after I started at BCIT, I did a full reno on not a full reno, I gutted the basement of my house and rewired it and replumbed it.
Oh my goodness, as if you needed more things. Like it just I'm so sorry that that was the rocky start. Like I think that's fantastic and like you could tell how resilient and amazing of a person you are that you got through that rocky start because like I think it's too much for anybody really even just that brief brief little story of being like oh my god oh my god oh my god but I'm happy that this is where you're at right now with teaching and that it turned into such a beautiful thing.
Having gone to school, then worked for quite a while as an
Mhm.
electrician, and then coming back to teaching, I sort of understand how the curriculum ties in with working life way
Mm.
more than I did before. So I'm like, I've always been that person who can ace a test, and then I do like a system-wide dump of all the information. Like,
Yeah, then it's gone.
yeah, but coming back to it, I like really understand now how the curriculum relates to working life, and I think we do a bad job connecting the theory that we're teaching people to their working lives. So
Mm,
I always try and like relate it to like an open neutral question. Like
mhm,
these are the voltages you can expect. These are the scenarios where you might do a service call and you'll run into this.
mhm. I like that. I like that tie back to reality and like tie
Oh
back
yeah.
to like an actual professional because I think that that is always a big disconnect is from theory to practice. And I think that this might tie into our next one is just I know a passion for you is trying to make the apprenticeship experience in Canada better. And I feel like that's partly part of it. And I was wondering if you could maybe explain like where that drive and that passion comes from. And then what does that actual process of becoming better look like?
So part of why I became a tradesperson is I'm a big believer in equity and in sort of the nobility of working life and doing work with your hands, seeing the product of your labor. And I really feel that still. But I also feel that tradespeople are not always given the respect
Mm-hmm.
that they deserve. And we have a big mix of, we're a multicultural country. So we have people coming with their different attitudes towards trades from all over the world. And even like within Europe, tradespeople are treated very differently from country to country. Like
Mm-hmm.
in Germany, they have like meisters, they have people
Mm-hmm.
who are incredibly experienced at the trade and incredibly well respected. Whereas in some other countries in Europe, a tradesperson is like really a second or even a third class
Mm-hmm.
type job. And to me, it's important work, it's skilled work, and sometimes it's dangerous, it's often uncomfortable, and people deserve to be well compensated. They deserve to have safe work environments, and they deserve to be respected. And I feel that's coming to fruition in some ways because now we have this work that's highly technical that
Mm-hmm.
needs to be done by a person and that can't be outsourced.
Yeah,
So,
it's true. I feel like it is also, I feel like that's also part of maybe this like movement or feeling like the needle is moving finally forward and that we're kind of hitting this peak point. I think like that's also a change of culture of how we view the trades, I think is changing. But I also think that's driven a large amount by like the labor shortage that is currently hitting Canada and is about to get way
yeah,
worse. But I think that's also kind of changing how we view the trades. And I think how we view these jobs as being like foundational to society and highly
yes,
technical. Whereas I
yes.
think originally I think sometimes we didn't really see the technicality of trades. I mean, I know my sister has experience, she's a welder, that a lot of people will put her down for being a welder or
Oh,
expect that that
yes.
job's not that technical. And she's like, what I do is metallurgy. Like it's basically engineering at a foundation level. It is like similar to metallurgy and to like materials and manufacturing engineering. It's far more similar to that than what you think
There's
welding
a
is.
there's a beautiful book called The Mind at Work. I
Mm,
think it's called Michael Rose or something.
okay.
And he talks about all these kind of occupations that you wouldn't think that much about. Say like waitressing
Mhm,
or even being a handyman. And he's talking about all the kind of intelligence, like all the kind of strategizing, planning, and then the sort of kinesthetic intelligence as well, how to hold your tools, the embodied knowledge to trades work.
mm,
And I love that book. And I really appreciate it when I see people doing work that they're proud of with
mhm,
a lot of skill. It takes effort to develop that skill.
mhm.
But for me, like if I had a good day on the tools, you kind of like you're kind of in a flow state and it's very nice. Like your
Yeah.
body knows what to do. Your mind is planning ahead, your body knows what to do. And maybe you do like one little technique, like say putting it on a knockout filler with a screwdriver and a pair of linesmen. And you remember somebody showing you exactly how to do that.
Mhm.
And it's just like you have all these little all this knowledge that's being given to you by other people. And it's I love
Uh,
it.
yeah. No, I love that, and I think that that actually brought up something that I didn't think we were gonna talk about, but I love that that brought up is because it's so technical, and I'm sure you have this with being an instructor,
Yeah.
is it's like mastery that gets passed down from generations to generations because
Yes.
it's not just theory from a book. It's like, again, kinesthetic intelligence of being like, hold your tool exactly like this, or like what you were saying of trying to make it real life to be like, oh, in a service call, this would happen, or like, this is how you could do this in a pinch, or this is a special
Yes.
technique that Doug taught me 20 years ago. And Doug was right. Like, it still works. It's still good. Like there's that kind of aspect of trades knowledge that I think is really, really cool. And I think it's unique to these industries.
Yeah. When we have such pressure to produce skilled workers, they don't always get the training that they need. And
Mhm.
they do some bad stuff because they're not trained.
Mm.
So that's an issue as well, making sure that people have the training that they need. There's also pressure sometimes to reduce the amount of training that's required to have
Mm,
mastery to get your certification. I think that's very wrong as well. I think the work we do is very involved.
mhm.
So we can't dumb it down. We can't make electrical into micro credentials.
No.
We can do micro credentials after you get your ticket. Then you can go and do little specializations, but it
Yeah.
shouldn't be like before.
No, no, absolutely not. There's no way. No, no, no. It should be after.
I feel also too like with the greening of the economy, decarbonization, renewing our electrical grid. BC Hydro, I'm terrible at stats, but BC Hydro has updated their capital plan with like some insane number of
Mhm.
billions to renew the electrical infrastructure
Wow.
in BC. There's just so many opportunities now for electricians,
Yeah.
for tradespeople generally. And some of it's going to be new categories of work and new types of work.
Mm,
And I actually also feel that that is an opportunity for women as well, for women and
mhm.
gender diverse people to get into work that is new, so it hasn't had the opportunity to be gendered yet.
That's a
So,
good point. Yeah.
well, I had some colleagues at BCIT who were doing a study of women in trades in the Caribbean, and
Mm,
there's almost none.
mm,
I mean, probably there are women in trades, but they're just not really tracked and recorded and
mm,
supported. There's very little. But one of the things they were talking about is electric cars and building the electric car infrastructure, charging stations, and places to repair EVs. And they were like, what if we came along and we made this women's work?
amazing though. Yeah,
Yeah,
why not? Yeah,
yeah,
like why not regender it to the other way? I didn't even think of that. It's
yeah.
brand new. It hasn't been touched.
So I don't know if that works for Canada, but it
Mhm,
might work for other places which are even more gender segregated than Canada.
mhm,
Because what I do know about electrical is it's been a great job for me and an opportunity to be financially stable
mhm,
and have a career really rather than just a job.
mhm.
And
Have like
have like a real sense of competence and capability.
oh, completely
Like,
like
yeah.
yeah, you know that you can completely even in the worst of worst, you can redo your entire basement and you have the complete like you can redo an entire house. You can do redo an entire like industrial site if you would like. Like you have I think there's a mastery and there's a pride that comes with mastery with trades that I think is really cool and also
Yeah.
with hands-on work in general. But I love the fact that it is financial independence at an early age and it provides you that.
I had so many doubts about myself, about the
Yeah.
work that I was doing and how capable I was all the way along.
Mhm.
Until I'd been in the trade for a while, and then I came along and, like, saw that the work that some of the dudes had done, and they were totally cocky, like, talking about how awesome they were and, like, wearing all the gear, and then I'm like, "You didn't even tighten up that lock ring, dude.
You're like,
Like,
if only I
everything's
could
on an angle, like"
if only I could be mediocre, man, but like that I'm not that
So I'm
lucky.
like, "I'm
Yeah.
not that bad,"
Yeah,
you
no.
know?
The
In fact, I
absolute
might be kinda
opposite.
good.
Yeah, absolute opposite. You've already been put through fire. You're gonna be a very good
Yeah.
electrician. Um,
One thing that troubles me about electrical is
mm.
everything I teach in the classroom, it's all academic.
Oh, okay.
Electricians do all their technical learning on the job,
Oh, I
except
didn't
for if
know
they've
that.
done a foundation program.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so foundation program, they'll have 6 weeks of shop time.
Okay.
But in Canada, other than that, it's all academic.
I didn't realize that with
Yeah, it's
electrical.
different.
Yeah. I thought that it was also gonna be a combination of both,
Other
theory.
trades are like that, but
Mhm.
not electrical.
Huh, that's
So,
different. I wish there
yeah,
was. There should be, I feel. I feel like that should probably be a change in education because it's a fantastic thing to do a little bit of both.
well, education's really evolving.
Mm,
So I it's complex to change trades education because we deal with Skilled Trades BC,
okay.
and they have a very strict mandate about what content we teach and how we deliver that content.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But I am hoping. I think there's some tremendous opportunities to do more,
Yeah.
and technology is driving a lot of that change
Mm. I could see
because
that.
we can do a lot of like the rote learning that can happen as an interaction between the student and learning management software.
Mm.
Then the more technical, complex stuff can be an interaction between the instructor and the student.
Yeah, that's
But that's
honestly,
not now. That's not now. That's
yeah,
future.
that's in the future. That
Yeah,
hopefully that's in the
yeah,
future with it. And I wanted to take a maybe a little bit of a divert from education and from instructing.
yeah.
And I wanted to talk, I think we've already talked a little bit at the very beginning of how wonderful and the importance of women's groups for women in trades. But you're a regional rep for BCCWITT, which is the BC Center for Women in Trades and Technology. And if we could, if we haven't touched on it yet or expand on it, the importance of these groups and how they help to improve culture and increase representation. And then, if we've already touched on that, what do you think that these women's groups get right? And where do you think that they could grow or improve on? Like, what are the next steps you think for maybe?
So I am beyond words grateful for BCCWIT
Hmm.
and also the BC Trades Equity Society,
Hmm.
which used to be the BC Tradeswomen Society, but it just had a name change. Um, because, well, they're supporting me to put on my next event.
Yes.
They're supporting me in doing a research project, which I'm really excited about, but I'm gonna not talk about that.
I was like, I don't know about that. I was about to like dive in to be like, what is this research? We'll save it for
Yeah,
another episode. You'll come back on Smoko and talk about your research.
like when I did the now it's called Leaders in Trades training.
Mhm.
So when I did that training, we spent 5 days in Kelowna together with a cohort of 20 other tradeswomen from across BC. And I just made the most amazing friendships and had the most amazing connections. And they really pushed for me to go to that. I had very little interest in going to that. I was a bit worried that, and actually, like 4 or 5 of the other women told me the same thing. They were a bit worried about being with 20 other women for a week. And it was just very emotional for me
Yeah.
because they had the same lived experiences as I did. They had gone through the same
Hmm.
things. And they also had the same sort of delight in being competent at trades work.
Hmm.
And there was all different categories of workers there. From that experience, I sort of have felt more confident and more supported in doing advocacy work. Advocacy is something that's come later for me. I have my daughter has autism, and it was a lot of work raising her, and now she's doing really, really well. She's doing so well, in fact, that I have bandwidth for other things.
Hmm.
So, despite having been at BCIT for 10 years, it's only the past 3 years that I've kind of been involved in advocacy work. So I have support from them. I have financial support from them. I have advice. And I have like this connection of the 20 women I did the cohort with. I'm not close with all of them, but I'm close with quite a few of them.
Hmm.
And it kind of has reinforced to me how important it is for women and gender diverse people to have social connection.
Hmm.
Because we're going through this experience that's different, that's hard, and it can be very isolating. So I've hosted a couple of meetups at BCIT. And then in November, I did an event called Equity in Electrical.
Hmm.
We had, it was close to 60 people there. 45 of them were women and gender diverse electricians. 5 of them were female electrical contractors.
Amazing.
And people were like in tears
Oh,
because they do feel alone.
yeah.
One person, she was the only woman on her job site who had ever been on this job site. It was a building that had been under construction for 2 years.
Wow.
And so you can just, she's beautiful too, and probably, and young, very young, like 20. So I could see that it just would be really challenging for her and really just lonely, you know?
Mhm.
So I know that people who came to that event made work connections, and some
Mhm.
of them found employment or moved jobs from that event.
Mhm.
That it just meant the world to me. And we had a slideshow of all the work that the women were doing, like playing as we ate lunch.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like my colleague Kevin, I had no idea that she had kind of like been rappelling on stuff and climbing up, like just like, oh my God,
Yeah,
you're
can you
amazing.
show? Like, whoa. Yeah, that's
She's
incredible.
like she's across the aisle from me. We're the only two women in our department of 50. And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh my God, you're such a
Yeah.
badass. I had no idea. So it was really exciting to me to see all the work that people were doing
Mm,
and to connect them, and it just has made me determined to do more of these events. It's a lot of
mhm,
work for me, but people are isolated, they have a thirst for connection.
mhm. Yeah, it's needed. It's
Yeah.
like, I love, I think, that example that you said earlier in the interview. You said something very beautiful of it's a place where they can let their armor down. And I
Mhm.
think that's exactly like hit the nail directly on the head of being like, that is exactly what happens is it's a place where maybe people are a little nervous to step into. I like that you were like, I was really nervous to go out with 20 women on that first
I was like, it's gonna be
that
hell.
first weekend. But like if you can get over that initial maybe panic or scariness, I feel like it is a wonderful thing. And it's a place where it can have true connection, but also everybody there knows what you're talking about. If you bring up something that potentially is maybe taboo or maybe a little bit more serious, maybe something a little scary, something about culture that can be jarring to talk about, you'll have 60 other people to be like, "Yeah, completely understand. That happened
Well,
to
we
me."
all
Or,
know what it's
yeah.
like to have your period
Mhm.
and to be trying to change your tampon or whatever in a porta potty with no
Oh,
toilet paper and no hand sanitizer. And you're like, how do I negotiate this? You know,
oh,
I
those
have
are
to
the
remember to
worst.
take some toilet paper in a Ziploc bag,
Yeah.
and
I knew
like,
where you were going as soon as you said it. I was like, "The stupid porta potties." I was like, "Yep, we all know them well, and they're all
yeah. It's
disgusting."
wild. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think like I heard on CBC a while ago an Australian electrician talking, and he's like, you treat trades workers like animals here.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
unnecessary.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there seems to be almost like a delight in having like these, it's like pretty disrespectful to me actually, like the
Yeah.
circumstances, especially like on like a large job site. Maybe it's a little bit different if you're wiring up a house,
Mhm.
but if you're on a job site with like 300 workers, why are there not proper bathroom facilities?
Yeah.
It's
Why is this it? What like also when it's usually a construction project that's like worth like billions of dollars for the
yes,
government and for like a private organization. So you're like,
yeah.
the least they could do is maybe put in something for us. But I do think that like having that community is so important. I think it's fantastic to see. I'm so excited to come to your event in March and
Yes,
to
I'm
come
so
to one of
happy
them.
that you're coming, and for the door prize. That's awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to give it. Like it's so nice to support and to see that community and to see BCC win and the fact that it also has government support and just to see BC
Yes,
Tradeswomen
they're
Society
fantastic.
like that's fantastic to see. Where would you hope that these organizations go? Like in your future, how
So
can they get better or
I
bigger?
have a vision for my own workplace.
Okay.
And for BCIT, which is a Center for Equity in Trades at BCIT, because we're
Oh.
British Columbia's largest training provider.
Mhm.
And I feel that apprentices generally need more assistance and more supports. And I feel that women and gender diverse trade students specifically need that sense of connection. They need to be connected into resources, and they need to be invited in and made to feel welcome.
Hmm.
That's where my efforts and my work are going now. Because imagine you're the one woman in, say, a iron worker generalist program. Like,
Mhm.
what is your experience going to be like? It might be quite challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
might
you're
not
having
be,
yeah.
but
You don't know though, and like that's also the very beginning of someone's journey, and you don't want them to leave before they've even started,
yes.
especially right now within kind of this current climate of shortage. You don't want them to just
Yeah.
exit because of a bad program. So I think that
Well, we
that's
have a low retention rate for
mm,
women and gender diverse people in trades. Not only are we have lower recruitment rates, but we have lower retention rates. I think there was a CAF report. it's in the 30s for the top 10 building trades, 30%,
Wow.
30, like 35 or something.
Yeah.
But actually, like for men, it's not that much better. It's
Mm.
like close to 50%, I think, for them. Somewhere in there.
Okay.
I'm terrible
Yeah.
at the stats, but it's too low.
Yeah.
And it's possible that some people enter the trades and it's not for them.
Hmm.
That's a hundred
That
percent
happens.
happens.
Yeah, that happens.
But it's also possible that people are not being respected, not being given training opportunities. Like you often hear about women complaining about being told to clean.
Oh, yeah.
And cleaning is part of an apprentice's
Oh,
job, but
totally.
there's
Hmm.
also, why is the person who's a seventh term apprentice cleaning while the new guy is doing something more demanding and more interesting? That happens, right?
Mm.
Also, we don't get promoted in the same way. And some of that's just from social connection. A lot of promotion happens through social connection, and women and gender diverse people don't necessarily have the same social connections
Hmm.
with their higher ups.
Hmm.
So we need social connection. We need
Yeah.
to have our networks.
To be able to do that. Yeah, no, I, oh, that stat is troubling. Oh yeah, it's just it's rough that it already is happening, and you could kind of
Yeah.
understand where it is coming from, and you could kind of see it. In terms of changing culture and for kind of increasing representation of
Yes.
women and gender diverse people, who do you think are the big like change makers? Like where do you think change is going to come from? Is it government? Is it
I see the big
organizations?
change in unions.
Union. Okay.
Yeah. So the IBEW Local 213 is doing the most incredible work.
Hmm.
I think they have something like 17% women and gender
Oh,
diverse
wow.
apprentices.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And from what I hear, employers are happy. Work's getting done. It hasn't just turned into some kind of, I don't know, party or something. Like a lot of, they're very productive.
Hmm.
Things are getting done. I don't know all the ins and outs of how this has happened,
Hmm.
but it was a decision made on an organizational level at the local 213 to go towards a certain percentage women. And there was a lot of fear about that at first, but it's
It's
working.
worked.
Things are
Yeah.
changing. So I see that. I see more connection generally. I see any government project. We need quotas. And the quotas don't even have to be high, like 10%,
Hmm.
you know? Because guess what we're at right now? About like 6% in the
Yeah.
skilled trades. It's ridiculously low. And women are good at these jobs. Is
Hmm.
every woman good at being a trades worker? 100%
No.
not.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of highly skilled, highly competent women. So I see quotas on any kind of government sponsored project as a way to go. Reasonable quotas, right?
Hmm.
10% is nothing crazy.
No, it's
So
like that's nothing, but it's better than 5% and 5% like stagnant for 25 years. It's far,
yeah.
far better than that. So we'll take it. That's amazing.
And then the other thing is that employers, there's a shortage of workers. We need workers.
Hmm.
So now there's more women and gender diverse workers. Now there's more employment opportunities. In the past couple of months, I've seen two ads though that both said men only.
Really?
So there are like, and big complaints happen as soon as people see these ads,
Yeah.
and the ads get taken down, but nothing happens, right?
Oof. I have not seen that. That's pretty
One
wild.
was for a waterproofing company in Coquitlam, and one was for, and they were like, "Oh, we made a mistake." They did not make a
No,
mistake.
there's no way. Mm-mm.
And
I
then
bet you that
another
position's
one,
filled. Like, you know what I mean?
another one was in a private Facebook group for Canadian electricians. So,
Wow.
so
That's, but that still also goes like Canada wide. But I like to hear that it's maybe not a huge job or like huge organization, and that right now we have at least support from government and probably support from big firms, right? Not
yes,
from small firms,
big
but
firms,
it's still
unions,
troubling to
and
see.
there's many amazing small employers,
Hmm.
but it's just a little bit hard to be like coherent and have targets for all small employers
Yeah.
say.
Oh,
So
totally.
I'd say go after the unions, go after any kind of government sponsored project.
Mhm.
And then there's all kinds of government grants that people can take advantage of. I think there's a $10,000 incentive to hire
Mhm.
an apprentice from an equity priority group, 5,000 for non-equity
Mhm.
priority. But there's some significant incentives for employers. And employers, they're working on, it's very challenging for them to recruit people, and it's very hard for them to retain people. A lot of the time when people want more money, they simply go to another organization,
Mhm.
especially in the private sector. So
Mhm. Yeah.
I want another $3 an hour, I'm going to go to another company,
It's easy to
like,
do. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
It's easy to hop.
rather than have that negotiation.
Mm. Mhm.
So then the employer's lost out on training that person. So I see tremendous opportunity for change. Another neat thing for me is how people are connecting through social media. You get to see the work as it's being done.
Mhm.
Like I love Instagram. For a while, I was watching HVAC service calls. I
Yeah,
feel
day
like
in the
I
light.
know a lot about
Yeah.
HVAC now.
But it's incredible to see because we didn't have that. And we've never had that in media. Like
Yeah.
there's no one that really adequately shows what an electrician does on a TV show. There's no
Yeah.
reality show that like follows a plumber. So that's wonderful to finally see a little peek behind the curtain.
Yes, I had no
Yeah.
idea. Like when I started electrical, I didn't know what a wire looked like. I had no idea what was
Yeah.
behind the drywall. So
Until you serviced it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
completely, right? Like it's kind of on its own. And that was wonderful. And I couldn't agree more with like who to go after maybe for big change. And I have been blown away by some of the wonderful women that I've met from the union and just hearing about women's committee groups and hearing about like mental health committees and
Yes.
like sisterhood and the brotherhood and some of these huge conventions and just seeing the energy and the change in legislation and the
Yes.
change and the power of changing both the union but then also government. It is fantastic to see. In terms of equity, do you think that there's something right now that we need to overcome specifically? Like, is there a barrier other than just in
There's
general?
there's huge
Like,
barriers. There's
yeah,
huge barriers. And some of them are structural, right?
yeah,
Like not having bathroom facilities, not having PPE that fits you.
yeah,
Some of them is just the old boys club, which
hmm,
men can be unaware of.
yeah.
Like they think we treat everybody equally, but they really don't.
Yeah, they're like, everyone loves golf. Like, that's where we hire, but that's fine because everybody loves golf. And you're like, no, come on, tone down.
I just like to be invited to the golf game.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
so I think there's huge barriers. I think it is still tough out there. Even if you're working for a union or a big organization, you're going to wind up with people who are sexist, who challenge you, people who are opportunistic or creepy. It is just the way it's going to happen.
Hmm.
But now we're more connected, we're more powerful. We have WhatsApp groups. We have like,
Yeah.
your employer's a loser, just quit.
Yeah.
So your employer is not standing up for you. Your
Mhm.
employer is asking you to do unsafe work.
Move
Go
on.
get another job. There's tons of them out there. Their loss,
Mhm.
not your loss.
Mm.
So having that kind of instant connection, like having a network of women who have your back, is just extraordinary.
Mm.
And
I love
that
it.
is the biggest thing for breaking down those barriers. There were so few of us before, and we were so disconnected.
Mhm.
And now there's more of us, and we're more connected, and we're more powerful.
And organized and
Yes,
structured
yes.
and yep. And we know
Better
what we want.
resourced,
Yeah.
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 And then people they kind of are exposed through things like Instagram to the
Mhm.
work that's being done, and it's interesting. If you have a job in HR,
Mhm.
is that situation ever really resolved? But if you do electrical work, you can install and run a conduit, pull some wire, flip a switch, and a light turns on, a motor turns on. And you have this incredible sense of satisfaction.
Mhm.
So having jobs with like outputs that are
Tangible.
defined is
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
And people are very drawn to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have that thing where like the trades, we're interfacing more and more with technology with the work that we do, and it's also very interesting. Like layout is so easy now with lasers, and
Mhm.
it was way harder before.
I can
So,
imagine. I really could without technology, without that aid. Well, I love to see like that feature of it and kind of where we're headed. And
mhm,
I love to see in terms of equity that we can move in the right places. And like,
yes.
yes, obviously barriers still exist, but like they're far more manageable now. And
Mhm,
we're in
mhm.
a better way to attack them at this moment to kind of get through them, which is
Yeah,
lovely to see. And at the last one that I want to ask you, and it might be a little bit of a revert back, but to teaching, but
yeah,
it's more about just your experience in general. So it doesn't have to be coming directly from instructing. It can come from working on the tools, being an instructor, being within these women groups, but it's maybe like what is something that you've had the pleasure to teach somebody? And then what's something that you've had the pleasure to learn that you just didn't expect that you're like, oh my goodness, that just changed my life. Like, so what have you been able to teach somebody and change their life? And what have you been able to learn that's changed yours?
I try and sort of teach them like systems to work through problems,
Mhm.
and like a kind of a framework that they can apply to different situations, whether it's circuit analysis or problem shooting. I mean, really, a lot of the big things are more on the affective side. It's like the importance of community. I mean,
Mhm.
I did always think of myself as being a rebel, and I didn't need other people, but I do need other people.
Rebels
And
have friends too. Yeah.
and just a sense of responsibility to each other that makes the world kind of like a kinder place. Like I do feel a sense of responsibility to my students when they go out into the world and they have good and bad experiences. You know, a lot of apprentices are asked to do things that are unsafe and work in
Mhm.
unsafe work environments. And
Mhm.
I like all of this is not okay, and this has to change. Just because we have tremendous housing pressure doesn't mean that we can ask our workers to do unsafe work.
Mhm.
So to me, it's about respect and valuing people and celebrating their accomplishments and not thinking of tradespeople as being second class citizens. So that's very important to me. So I don't know. It's a lot of it's about respect and justice, and to me, like Canadian values of inclusivity. And
Mhm.
you need everybody in a society, from the janitor to the CEO.
Oh,
Like they're
totally.
all important,
Yeah.
and I don't want to lose sight of that. I don't want to kind of squeeze people out in occupations that we consider unimportant. It's the importance of people.
Mhm. That's been a theme. Like, I feel like that comes off in spades completely of like the importance of these position, the respect of these position, the authority that these positions I think also demand of like in terms of technical skill and skill in general, the respect that they demand, and also just treating people as people and just trying to be inclusive and equitable to
Yes.
every single
And a
person.
lot of
Like,
that comes down
yeah.
to legislation and
Mhm.
enforcing legislation.
Mm.
Like a family friend, Rod Mickelberg, wrote a book about organized labor in
Mhm.
BC, and a lot of it has involved striking and violence, actually,
Yeah.
because like, which is wild to me. I never knew that. I kind of we had all these employment rights, and I just have kind of taken them for granted.
Mhm.
But people fought for them,
Mhm. Yeah, where they
so
came from. Like importance of unionism,
yeah.
importance of strikes, and also importance of like, yeah, changing legislation. I think like sometimes it is a messy thing, but it's not something you think about all the time. I never think of that to be like, oh yes, that was actually from
Why
the
do we have
back of,
Saturday and Sunday off? You know,
yeah,
like
that took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to
yeah,
get that
yeah.
and to change that culture.
40-hour work week, like
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff is very important. People should be paid for the work that they do and respected and be able to live decently.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
So
No,
that's a
I
big thing for me.
I love it, Anna. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your advocacy work and talking about your work as an electrician and your work within these women groups. And I know that advocacy came to you late, but you can't tell. Like, I feel like it has been a theme of your life, whether it has been formal or informal, because I feel like this has just been a passion of equity. I think that's a big theme that has come across this interview in
Yeah.
spades. And I can't wait to see that center at BCIT. I can't wait to see
Pray
the
for me.
Annie Lary
I
Center at
just need to
BC
make it
Equity.
rain a little bit.
Honestly, like that's exactly what we need. And that is like, I couldn't agree more with that key change maker of union and government. And then again, big groups like BCCWIT. So just thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
And I do really respect and have had many, many good experiences with smaller employers and non-union employers. Just like in terms of where can the change be
Where should we focus?
effectively made? Yeah,
Yeah, where should we focus on like big kind of big movements? Yeah.
yeah.
But
Okay.
it's been a joy, Anna. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on
you,
the show.
Alexis. Have a great day. It's been
Thank you.
fun.
You
Bye.
too.